The galaxy was watching. For the first time in history, humanity had been invited to the Great Coalition, a gathering of alien civilizations older and stronger than Earth. The Coalition expected many things from this new species. They expected weakness. They expected fear. They expected a human who would bow, smile, and beg for protection. But they were wrong. The one chosen to represent Earth was not like the ambassador they imagined. His name was never spoken loudly. To the world, he was simply the ambassador. But before the mission, he did not study polite speeches. He did not practice soft words or gentle bows. Instead, he studied predators. For months, he watched lions on the African plains, wolves hunting in frozen forests, and hawks diving from the sky. He learned how predators moved, how they waited in silence, how they attacked only when the moment was right. He learned that true power did not always roar. Sometimes it simply stared. And when he stepped into the alien starship that would take him to the Council, he carried not only Earth's hope, but the cold, patient calm of a hunter. The Coalition's Grand Hall was larger than any human stadium. Thousands of alien eyes stared down at the lone figure walking across the floor. Tall, insect-like leaders clicked their mandibles. Massive reptilian warlords hissed, their tails scraping against the stone. Small, rodent-like species whispered to each other, expecting the human to tremble at such a sight. But the ambassador did not tremble. He walked slowly, every step steady, his back straight, his eyes sharp. He looked at the alien leaders the way a hawk looked at prey from above, calm, silent, and cold. The hall grew quiet. This was not the weak human they had expected. One alien leaned close to another and whispered, "Why does he stare like that?" Another replied, "He looks at us, as if we are prey." The ambassador said nothing. He did not rush. He did not smile. He simply reached the center of the hall and stood there, still as stone, watching. The silence became heavy. Aliens who had lived for centuries suddenly shifted in discomfort. Some felt their scales prickle. Others twitched their tails nervously. The ambassador's eyes moved slowly across the chamber, studying each leader as if measuring their strength or their weakness. Finally, the head of the Coalition, a massive creature with armored skin and 6 burning eyes, spoke. "Human of Earth," it said, its voice echoing like thunder. "Do you come here to beg for mercy? Do you come here to ask for protection? Or do you come here to bow before the strong?" Every alien in the hall leaned forward, waiting for the human's answer. They expected fear. They expected a long speech filled with polite words. But the ambassador only tilted his head slightly, like a predator hearing a sound in the grass. Then he spoke with a calm, steady voice. "I come here," he said, "to see who hunts and who hides." The words were simple, but they struck like claws. The chamber fell silent again. Aliens exchanged uneasy glances. This was not how prey spoke. Prey asked for safety. Prey tried to please its hunters. But this human spoke like a predator testing the air before the chase. The ambassador did not explain himself. He did not lower his gaze. Instead, he kept his eyes locked on the Coalition leader, unblinking, patient, waiting. The great armored creature shifted in its seat. No one had ever dared to look at it like that. No one had ever stood so calmly in front of it, without fear, without trembling. The ambassador had said only a few words. But already the aliens felt something they did not expect. Unease. Behind the chamber walls, whispers began to spread. "Why does the human speak like this? He should be afraid. Yet he is not. Perhaps Earth is not as weak as we thought." But others hissed in warning. "Do not be fooled. It is a small world. Their fleets are weak. They cannot stand against us. Still, none of them could shake the image of the human's eyes. Calm, sharp, and unblinking, like a predator in the tall grass. The meeting ended with no agreements, no treaties. But something had changed. The ambassador had left the chamber the same way he had entered, calm, silent, patient. He gave no speeches, he made no promises. He simply walked out, leaving behind the weight of his presence. For the first time in generations, the alien coalition felt something unusual. Not fear of an enemy's weapons, not fear of an army's size, but the deeper, older fear of being watched by a predator. In the quiet after his departure, the coalition leaders sat in silence. One of them whispered, "This human—" "He does not act like prey," another replied, voice low. "No, he acts like one of us." And so, the legend began. The galaxy had expected a diplomat. What they received was a hunter. The alien coalition had seen many species rise and fall. They had faced warriors who shouted, kings who demanded, and diplomats who begged. But none had unnerved them the way this human did. He had said very little, yet his silence was louder than speeches. The next day, the ambassador was called again to the council chamber. This time, the leaders planned to test him. They would use fear, intimidation, and power. Tools that had broken many young civilizations before. The chamber lights dimmed as he entered. Alien warlords stood taller, their shadows stretching across the floor. Sharp teeth glistened, claws tapped against stone. They wanted the human to feel small, but the ambassador did not feel small. He walked to the center again, his steps steady, his face calm. He did not flinch when a giant reptilian leader hissed loudly, spraying venom on the floor near his feet. He did not react when insectoid warriors rattled their armored bodies like drums. He only stood, his hands behind his back, and watched, like a hunter in tall grass. The silence grew heavier. One alien slammed a clawed fist against the table. "Do you not fear us, human?" it growled. The ambassador turned his head slowly, meeting the alien's gaze. His voice was quiet, but every word carried across the hall. "Fear?" he asked. "A predator does not fear noise." "Noise only shows impatience," the alien snarled, but did not rise again. Another leader, tall and covered in quills, leaned forward. "Your world is small. Your fleets are weak. Your kind should come here begging for mercy." The ambassador did not answer right away. He let the silence hang in the air until even the quilled leader shifted uncomfortably. Then finally he spoke. "Mercy is for prey," he said. "I did not come here as prey." The chamber shivered with whispers. The aliens tried harder. One of the largest warlords, a beast with scales black as night, rose from its seat and stomped toward him. The floor shook under its weight. The creature towered over the human, its teeth like swords. It leaned close and hissed, "If I chose, I could crush you here and now." The ambassador did not blink. His eyes locked onto the warlords as if measuring him, weighing him. Then he answered with a single quiet line. "If you can, then do it." The words froze the chamber. The warlord's chest heaved. His claws twitched. But he did not move. For all his size, for all his power, he felt something strange in that moment. Hesitation, because the human was not afraid. The ambassador stepped closer instead of back. He looked up at the warlord the way a wolf looked at a larger beast, testing if it was truly dominant. His calm, steady gaze pierced deeper than any blade. Finally, the warlord growled low and turned away, retreating to his seat. The hall erupted in murmurs. Never had anyone stood against that warlord without trembling. Never had anyone dared to call his bluff, and the human had done it with nothing but silence. And eyes like a predator. The meeting ended again with no decision. The aliens left the chamber unsettled. Some were angry. "This human insults us. He plays with death." Others were uneasy. "No prey would act this way. Perhaps he is more dangerous than he looks." But deep inside, they all felt the same thing. Doubt. Doubt in their power. Doubt in their control. Doubt in their ability to bend this human to their will. The ambassador had turned their test into his hunt. He had forced them to show their teeth, their claws, their threats, and then showed no fear. Predators respect only predators. And that day, the alien coalition began to wonder if humanity was one of them. Later, in his private quarters, the ambassador sat alone, calm as always. Outside, alien guards whispered to each other, too nervous to look him in the eye. He said nothing. He made no record of his victory. He only waited, silent and patient, for he knew something the aliens did not yet understand. The hunt had only begun. The alien coalition had faced many diplomats before. They were used to endless words, polite speeches, and weak promises. Most young species tried to survive with flattery, hoping to avoid angering the great empires. But the human ambassador was different. He did not flood the chamber with words. He did not bow, nor did he beg. His sentences were short, sharp, and dangerous. Every word was like the strike of a claw, quick and precise. The aliens began to realize something strange. This human spoke the way predators hunted. The council gathered again, determined to break his will. They believed they only needed to push harder, to corner him, to make him slip. The leader of the insectoid race leaned forward, mandibles clacking. "Human, you speak boldly for someone whose world is fragile. Why should we waste resources on Earth? Why should your kind be allowed in this chamber?" The ambassador turned his head slightly, his eyes cold. "Because the hunt is not over yet," he replied. The words were simple. Too simple, but they carried weight. The insectoid leader twitched, confused and unsettled. Another alien spoke, a towering figure covered in armored plates. "You dare to compare yourself to us? We have crushed empires. We have burned fleets. What do humans have? Soil, oceans, and fragile bones." The ambassador's voice was calm, but his tone was sharp. "Bones can break. So can empires," the armored alien hissed, but found no words to answer. The ambassador had studied predators for months before coming here. He had learned that a predator did not waste energy. It did not roar without reason. It waited. It chose the moment. And then when the prey was exposed, it struck. That was how he spoke now, short attacks hidden between long silences. When an alien threatened, he did not reply instantly. He paused, letting silence spread through the chamber like a shadow. That silence made every leader shift nervously, waiting for his answer, afraid of what would come next. And when he finally spoke, his words landed with the weight of a strike. One leader finally grew frustrated. "Human, you insult us with your silence. Speak properly, or we will remove you from this chamber." The ambassador's eyes locked onto him. He tilted his head slightly, studying the creature as if it were a wounded animal. His voice was quiet. "If you cannot endure silence, how will you endure war?" The chamber froze. It was not a threat. It was not even shouted. But it cut deeper than any roar. The coalition members began to whisper among themselves. They had tried threats, intimidation, and open insults. Yet the human only grew stronger with each test. The reptilian warlord who had confronted him earlier watched carefully. He had fought beasts across dozens of worlds. He had seen the eyes of predators before, just before they struck, and now he recognized the same eyes in this human. He muttered under his breath, "He speaks like us. He fights with silence." The ambassador did not smile. He showed no pride, no arrogance. He only remained calm, watching, waiting. He understood that words could be weapons, and silence could be a cage. The aliens had wanted to make him look weak. Instead, they began to reveal their own fear, each outburst, each threat, each insult. They exposed themselves more, and the ambassador cut through them with simple lines that left the entire chamber uneasy. By the end of the meeting, no treaty had been signed. No decision had been reached, but when the human left the chamber, the whispers behind him were different now. "This one is dangerous. He traps us with words. He is not prey. He is one of us." The predator's language was not in roars or claws. It was in silence, in patience, and in words sharpened like blades. And now the galaxy had begun to understand that Earth's ambassador did not come to beg. He came to hunt. In his private room, the ambassador sat once more in silence. He did not write down his words. He did not rehearse speeches. He only waited, calm and still, like a predator watching the shadows, because he knew the truth. Every meeting was not a discussion. It was a hunt, and he was winning. The alien council had grown restless. 3 times the human ambassador had entered their chamber. 3 times he had left without fear, without defeat, without giving them the satisfaction of weakness. His silence had unsettled them. His words had cut them deeper than any blade. They had expected prey. Instead, They found something far more dangerous. And so, they decided it was time for a test. The message came to the ambassador late at night. The alien guards at his door carried it with stiff movements, as if they feared to get too close. "The council demands your presence tomorrow," one guard said. "You will face the trial of negotiation. If you pass, Earth may be considered for the coalition. If you fail, Earth will never return." The ambassador accepted with a simple nod. He asked no questions. He showed no fear. He simply said, "I will be there." When the guards left, he sat alone in the silence. For a long time, he did not move. Then slowly, he closed his eyes. Predators did not panic before the hunt. They prepared. They watched. They waited. The next day, the chamber was different. The usual circle of alien leaders remained. But now the air was heavier, filled with tension. At the center of the hall stood a stone platform, lit by a harsh white light. That was where the ambassador was ordered to stand. Above him, alien leaders whispered and hissed. The trial of negotiation was rarely used. It was not a debate. It was not a polite exchange. It was a ritual meant to break the spirit of weaker species. Dozens of leaders would circle the candidate, launching questions, insults, and threats in rapid fire. The goal was to overwhelm, to crush, to expose weakness. Many had failed. None had stood without trembling. Until now. The ambassador stepped onto the platform, calm as always. He placed his hands behind his back, lifted his head, and waited. His eyes swept across the chamber, slow and steady, like a predator scanning a field before the strike. The first alien spoke, its voice sharp. "Human, your world is weak. Why should we protect it?" The ambassador's reply came soft and measured. "Perhaps you mistake us. We did not ask for protection." A ripple of whispers spread across the chamber. Another alien barked, "Then why come here at all? Why waste our time?" The ambassador's eyes fixed on the speaker. "Predators meet to test each other. Sooner or later, they must know who hunts. And who runs?" The chamber grew tense. Questions and insults came faster now. "Your fleets are nothing. Your armies would shatter under our claws. Your people are prey, and prey does not belong here." But the ambassador did not falter. To each insult, he answered with calm precision. To each threat, he turned silence into a weapon. He never raised his voice, never rushed, never looked away. His words were not long speeches. They were sharp strikes. The size of teeth does not decide the hunt. Prey runs. We are still here. Empires fall when they believe they cannot fall. Every answer left the chamber colder than before. Finally, the most feared warlord in the council rose from his seat. The black-scaled beast who had tried to crush him earlier stomped to the edge of the platform. His voice was a growl, low and dangerous. "Enough of your games, human. You stand here with no fleet, no army, no empire. One word from us and Earth will burn. Tell me, why should I not order it now?" The chamber fell silent. All eyes turned to the ambassador. For a moment, he did not speak. He only stared at the warlord, his gaze cold, steady, unblinking. The silence stretched until even the warlord shifted uneasily. Then, finally, the ambassador spoke. "Because hunters do not waste time burning grass when the forest is still unknown." The warlord froze. The meaning was clear. Humanity was not yet fully seen, not yet fully understood. To strike now would be to attack blindly without knowing the danger hidden in the shadows. It was not a threat shouted with fury. It was a warning whispered with calm, and it sank deeper than any roar. The chamber was quiet. None dared to speak. For the first time, the trial of negotiation had not broken its target. Instead, the target had turned it against them. The ambassador stood on the platform, calm, silent, patient. His presence filled the hall like a hunter watching prey too afraid to move. At last, the council ended the trial. No decision was announced, but everyone in the chamber felt the truth. The human had not failed. He had hunted. That night, whispers spread across the galaxy. The human did not bend. He stood before the trial and never flinched. Perhaps Earth is not prey. Perhaps Earth is predator. And as the ambassador sat alone in his quarters, calm and still, He knew this was only the beginning. The hunt was far from over. The trial of negotiation was meant to break him. Instead, it had broken the council. The human ambassador had stood calm through storms of threats and insults. He had turned silence into a weapon and words into claws. Now the alien leaders whispered in private chambers, their voices low, their eyes restless. They had wanted to expose weakness, but what they saw was a predator in human skin. Across the Coalition's many worlds, news spread quickly. The stories changed with each telling, but the feeling remained the same: unease. On the reptilian homeworlds, warlords hissed to one another. "This human speaks as if he is one of us. But what kind of prey dares to speak like that?" In the insectoid hives, queens tapped their mandibles nervously. "He stares as if weighing us for slaughter." Silence is not the way of prey. Even among the smaller species, whispers ran wild. If one human can face the council and not tremble, what will 1,000 humans do? 1,000,000? 1,000,000,000? The shadows of fear spread farther than the ambassador himself. His presence was gone, but his legend was already hunting them. Inside the council hall, things were not the same. Meetings grew tense. Aliens who had once shouted and roared now hesitated before speaking. Some avoided looking at the ambassador at all, afraid of his eyes. Others spoke too quickly, too loudly, as if trying to cover their own unease. The ambassador noticed everything. He did not gloat. He did not smile. He simply watched. Every twitch, every glance, every moment of hesitation, he collected them like tracks in the forest. Signs of fear. He knew fear was more powerful than any fleet. One night, an alien approached him in secret. A small creature from a timid species, with wide black eyes and trembling hands. "You are dangerous," it whispered. "They fear you." The ambassador turned his gaze toward it. "And you?" he asked. The creature hesitated. Then, in a shaking voice, it replied, "I fear you too, but I also admire you." The ambassador said nothing. He simply nodded once, and the creature slipped back into the shadows. Not all fear was silent. Some turned into anger. The black-scaled warlord who had tried to intimidate him before was furious. In private, he roared at his allies. "This human dares to shame us. He uses words as weapons. He is nothing, yet they whisper of him as if he is a hunter." But even in his rage, the warlord did not forget the human's eyes. He had looked into them once and felt the unsettling weight of being watched, measured, judged. The warlord's claws were sharp, but for the first time in years, he wondered if they would be enough. The ambassador continued to play his role with the same calm silence. He did not chase their fear. He did not try to control it. He simply let it grow, as predators let panic spread through a herd. When he spoke, it was only when needed, always short, always sharp, never wasted. One alien accused him of arrogance. He only answered, "Arrogance is noise. I prefer silence." Another accused Earth of being weak. He replied, "Weak prey does not walk into the lion's den." Every word deepened the shadows. Beyond the council, spies and informants reported back to their empires. Some argued that Earth was nothing more than a small, fragile world. But others warned of danger. "Do not look at the size of their fleets," one report said. "Look at the eyes of their ambassador. He is not prey. He is not afraid. If one human is like this, what are the rest like?" The seeds of doubt were spreading, and doubt was poison. The ambassador sat alone once more in his quarters. He never paced. He never muttered to himself. He simply sat, still as stone, waiting, patient. He knew what the aliens did not. Fear was the true weapon of predators. Not claws, not teeth. Fear. Once it settled into the mind, it never left. He could feel it now, growing all around him. In the council, in the cities, in the empire halls far away, the aliens were no longer asking, "Who is this human?" They were asking, "What is humanity?" And in that question, in that shadow of fear, the hunt moved closer to victory. Because once a predator enters your mind, you are already halfway prey. The council had tested him with threats. They had tried to break him with insults. They had even put him through the trial of negotiation, yet the human ambassador still stood unshaken. Now the meetings were different. The aliens no longer entered the chamber as confident hunters. They entered wary, watching him, as if they feared what he might do with only words. And the ambassador knew it. Predators understood one truth. Control was not taken by strength alone. It was taken by the mind. Fear was the first step. Doubt was the second. The final step was strategy. The ambassador had studied this well. In the next council meeting, he arrived earlier than the others. He stood in the center of the hall, waiting in silence. When the first alien entered, it found him already watching, his eyes sharp, his body calm. The second alien entered and felt the same. By the time the chamber was full, every leader realized the human had been watching them all as they came in. It felt less like a diplomat waiting for a meeting, and more like a predator waiting for prey to walk into the trap. When the debates began, the aliens tried to overwhelm him again. One leader shouted. Another roared. A third slammed a fist against the table. But the ambassador only sat still, letting them speak. He did not answer. He did not interrupt. He let their voices clash and rise higher, filling the chamber with chaos. Then, when silence finally fell, he spoke one calm sentence. "You make more noise than hunters. You sound like prey." The words struck harder than any roar. The chamber fell silent. No alien wanted to look weak by shouting again. That was his strategy. Speak last. Wait. Watch. Let silence trap them. Predators did not rush the hunt. They circled. They studied. They let prey reveal its panic. That was what the ambassador did with every meeting. If an alien boasted about its empire, he stared without blinking until the words began to sound hollow. If one tried to threaten him, he leaned forward slightly, as if he were about to strike. Not with claws, but with words. He never rushed. He never begged. He never let them dictate the pace. He was the hunter. The chamber was his hunting ground. Whispers spread among the leaders even as they sat before him. He waits like a wolf in the snow. He speaks like a hawk that sees every weakness. He uses silence as a blade, and the worst whisper of all, perhaps this is not only him. Perhaps all humans are like this. One day the insectoid queen tried to outmatch him. She launched into a long, sharp attack. Your kind is small. You crawl into this council with no power, no allies, no strength. You are nothing. Nothing but meat for the strong. The ambassador waited, still as stone. He let her words echo across the hall. When her voice finally fell silent, he answered with a slow shake of his head. Meat does not stare back at the butcher. The queen froze. The chamber filled with murmurs. Even the black-scaled warlord had begun to change. He no longer shouted. He no longer rose in rage. Instead, he watched the human carefully, studying him as if trying to understand. For the first time in his long life, he was not sure who the true predator was in the room. The ambassador noticed. He noticed everything. By now, he had turned their own chamber against them. The silence, once meant to intimidate him, now worked in his favor. The counselors feared his pauses more than his words. They feared his eyes more than his voice. This was his strategy, to make them hunt themselves. To make them expose their fear, their weakness, their doubt, and it was working. After the meeting ended, one alien muttered to another, "He never raises his voice." The other replied, "He does not need to. He already owns the silence." In his quarters, the ambassador sat once more in stillness. He knew the truth of the hunt. Prey ran. Hunters waited. And here, in the greatest chamber of power in the galaxy, the aliens were beginning to run, not with their legs, but with their minds. And once the mind runs, the body follows. The hunt was moving toward its endgame. The council chamber was heavy with tension. For weeks, the human ambassador had turned every meeting into a battlefield of silence and words. He had never shouted, never begged, never bowed. Yet the aliens now moved carefully around him, like prey circling a hidden predator. But one leader refused to bend. The warlord of the Iron Scales, ruler of a vast empire, had watched the human too long. He had seen fear spreading in the council and he hated it. His kind respected only strength. To him, the ambassador's calmness was an insult, a shadow that grew larger each day. The warlord decided he would end this game. When the meeting began, the warlord did not wait. He rose from his seat, his scaled body towering, his claws sharp as blades. His voice rumbled through the chamber like thunder. "Enough of this! I am done with human tricks. You think silence makes you powerful? You think staring makes you a hunter? You are nothing but a soft animal pretending to be strong." He slammed his claw against the stone table. The sound cracked like lightning. The other leaders froze. No one dared speak. All eyes turned to the human. The ambassador did not move. His hands rested on the table, his body still. Only his eyes lifted slowly to meet the warlord's. The same predator's gaze, calm, sharp, watching. The silence stretched. 10 seconds, 20, 30. The warlord's chest heaved with anger. His claws scraped against the table. But the human did not blink, did not flinch, did not break. At last the ambassador spoke, his voice quiet but cutting. "You roar like a beast, but beasts roar when they are afraid." The chamber shook, not from sound, but from the weight of those words. The warlord's scales rippled with fury. He took a step forward, towering over the human, his teeth bared. "Afraid? I could tear you apart with one hand. I could crush your bones before the council." Still the ambassador did not move. Instead, he leaned forward slightly as if a predator preparing to strike. "Then do it," he whispered. The words were not a challenge shouted in anger. They were an invitation spoken with absolute calm. The council gasped. No one had ever dared speak to the warlord like that. The warlord froze, his claws inches from the human's face. He expected fear. He expected the ambassador to tremble, to beg for life. But instead he saw something far more dangerous. No fear, only hunger. The warlord realized the truth. The human wanted him to attack. The human was baiting him, like a hunter luring prey into a trap. If he struck, he would look weak. A predator does not lash out in panic. If he stayed his hand, he would look weaker still, hesitating before prey. The warlord had been caught in the same trap he had tried to set. The silence stretched again. Every leader in the chamber leaned forward, waiting. Finally, with a low growl, the warlord pulled his hand back. His claws scraped against the stone, leaving deep marks. His eyes burned with rage, but also with something else, fear. For the first time, the warlord felt fear of a creature smaller, weaker, softer than him. The ambassador leaned back in his chair. His voice carried across the chamber, steady and cold. "You see, strength is not in claws. It is in control. And you have lost yours." The chamber erupted in whispers. The other leaders turned their eyes away from the warlord. For centuries, he had been the most feared in the council. But today, before a human, he had faltered. And in alien culture, hesitation was death. After the meeting, the corridors buzzed with voices. The warlord stepped back. He could not face the human. Perhaps the human is the true predator. The words spread like wildfire. The council's balance of power was shifting. In his private chamber, the warlord roared in fury, smashing stone and metal. But deep inside, the seed of doubt had been planted. The human had not only challenged him, he had made him hesitate. And hesitation was poison to a predator. The ambassador knew it. He knew that the breaking point had been reached. The moment fear entered the strongest heart, the rest would soon follow. Back in his quarters, the ambassador sat once more in silence. He remembered the lessons of wolves, lions, hawks. Predators did not always need to strike. Sometimes, making the other side believe they had already lost was enough. And in that chamber, the warlord had already lost. The hunt was nearly over. The warlord's hesitation had shaken the council. For centuries, his claws and his voice had ruled the chamber. Now one quiet human had made him step back. The story spread fast. Across the empire halls, in distant colonies, and even in the outer fleets, whispers carried a new fear. The human does not fear. The human breaks predators without striking. The human hunts with silence. The council could no longer ignore it. Something had changed forever. At the next gathering, the chamber was silent before the meeting even began. No roars, no boasts, no threats. Every leader sat still, waiting for the human to arrive. When the ambassador entered, he did not hurry. He did not smile. He simply walked to his seat and sat, his eyes sweeping across the chamber. The leaders lowered their gazes, like prey avoiding a hunter's stare. The council speaker cleared his throat. "Human ambassador, the council recognizes you." The ambassador leaned forward, resting his hands on the stone table. His voice was calm, steady, unshaken. "From the first day, you tested me. You threatened me. You thought humans weak. But I tell you this, humans are not prey. We are hunters. We hunt not with claws or fangs, but with patience, with strategy, with will. And now you have seen it." The leaders shifted uneasily. Some growled low, but none dared interrupt. The ambassador's gaze sharpened. "You face a choice. Accept humanity as equals in this council, or see us as predators on the outside. The choice is yours. But know this, prey cannot bargain with hunters." The silence that followed was crushing. The insectoid queen twitched her antennae, then lowered her head. The avian war leader fluffed his feathers but gave no protest. Even the iron-scaled warlord stayed quiet, his eyes burning but his claws still. No one dared challenge him now. The council speaker finally spoke. "Then it is agreed. Humanity shall have a place in this chamber." The ambassador did not smile. He only gave a slow nod. For a predator, victory was not in celebration. Victory was survival, dominance, and control, and humanity had earned it. When the meeting ended, the leaders left in silence. The warlord paused at the chamber doors, his eyes meeting the humans one last time. For a heartbeat, his claws twitched as if he wanted to strike. But he did not. He turned and left. The ambassador had won without raising a weapon, without spilling blood. He had turned the greatest predator of the council into silence. That silence was his final kill. In the private quarters, the ambassador finally allowed himself to breathe. He thought back to Earth, the wolves circling their prey, the hawks above the fields, the lions waiting in tall grass. He had learned their ways, their patience, their strategy. And now, in a chamber of alien empires, he had proven that humans too carried the spirit of predators. The aliens would never see humanity the same way again. Years later, stories of that day spread across the stars. They called him many names: the silent hunter, the predator diplomat, the human who stared down empires. But the title that stayed the longest was whispered with both fear and respect: the ambassador who negotiated like a predator. And with that name, the galaxy remembered the day humanity claimed its place among the stars.